life, really. There's not a whole lot out there on what you did before you entered the world of professional wrestling. I know you must have been a tremendous athlete. Can you give us, some of your upbringing? Where I don't know where you grew up, and what you were interested in those days.
Sean, this is how it really happened. I was brought up here in Arkansas. I was working on a farm, actually a farmer, and this is back in the days when farming was really good. I was studying become a pilot. I was going to be a crop duster. This farm I worked for, the people had like over 100,000 acres. They were a big, big farm. They were looking to get their own crop dusting. During that period, farming got really bad, so the people who owned land, they had a lot of land like that, they had to make a decision. Do we keep borrowing on this, or do we get out while we still have a lot of money? And the people I worked for decided to get out while they still had money. Yeah. And so I really was doing some construction. The Memphis had started, it was a franchise, the USFL Football League. We all remember that. And there was a team here in Memphis called the Memphis Showboats. Yeah. Well, I was I had tried out for that, got cut on the very last cut, and I was considering going to a scholarship offer at Arkansas State to try to get a couple years of experience in my belt. I had played football since high school. I was in the gym. I met Randy Savage, who was working the territory, the Memphis territory at the time. All the guys were in there. Hillbilly Jim, which was his name then was Harley Davidson. Yeah. They had Lanny Poffa was there. Randy, the whole Memphis territory worked out pretty much the same gym I worked out. And so they started saying, man, have you ever thought about professional wrestling? I said, man, be honest with you, I haven't seen professional wrestling since I was like in the 4th grade. And I remember the match. It was Jackie Fargo. He was bleeding so bad, and I was really in tears because the guy was hurt. Yeah. So I said, yeah, I'll try this. My wife was pregnant, and it sounded like I could get into that, making money a little bit faster, and that's exactly how it happened. I didn't have I don't have the story like a lot of guys do. I never had the love for the business. It was really just to make money.
Yeah, but were you a gifted high school athlete? Did you just play football? I mean, you must.
No, I played it all. I played baseball, basketball, football. That's something, Sean, when I look back on it, I really wish I'd had a chance. I think I really was a really good baseball player, a pretty good football player too. I played, I was a running back on offense and defensive end on the defense. Yeah. If I would have grown into myself, those two sports I could have really excelled in. Now, the one we don't have in Arkansas, which is, freestyle wrestling, now on off season, we didn't really have any coaches to teach us that, but I also excelled in that as well. I would have really loved to have had a chance to have done something like that.
So we know that you have a love for softball, and I'm sure that was born through baseball. So was that
right?
Your number one when you were a kid? And when did you really start having that size? Were you a late bloomer? Were you a big kid early on?
This thing is, Sean, this generally happens to all tall people. Both my children too. And I told my oldest son, he's a really great athlete. I said, Frank, you're going to be a late bloomer just like I wasn't. Yeah. And I'll never forget, I was that skinny kid that couldn't jump. And then I got to a point to where I just all of a sudden started dominating in everything. I could dunk, I could, outrun anybody. And it wasn't I was that big at the time. It's just I was starting to put on a little muscle. And then I tell kids this all the time that have a tough time with sports. It's not any fun until you're winning. And once I started winning and dominating, it became a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And baseball, of course, was my number one sport. And I'm not kidding. I literally would cry if it got rained out. It affected me that bad. And I'm not kidding. I cried every night. We didn't have many rainouts, but if we did, it really affected me. Because I did the whole 9 yards. I didn't leave the house all day. I stayed out of the swimming pools. I didn't do anything to overexert myself. This was Little League through Babe Ruth, Right. And in this area, too, I'm pretty sure I was the only switch hitter, the real only legitimate switch hitter in this area.
Really? How did that come about? Were you just ambidextrous?
Well, the thing is, my first couple of years of baseball, I suffered. I was really terrible.
Right.
And so my coach said, just go home, pick up a baseball, and hit it. And you just keep doing that all day long. And that's what I did. Yeah. I just started picking it up and throwing it up, hitting it. And then I said, okay, let me try this way. Then I started doing it left-handed. And then it just worked into that. And Sean, this is the deal is I don't have to pat myself on the back to you or nobody. I'm the hardest worker that I ever met in my life. And anybody that ever travels with me, like Bob Holly or Carl Willett or Billy Gunn or any of these guys that worked out with me and traveled on the road, no one ever worked harder than me. I was through with my first workout and back at my second breakfast when everybody else was just getting up and I was going to my second workout. And that's how I was as a kid too. I thrived to be the best, and I did everything it took to do that.
So, what was that? Born in you early, or did you have somebody in your life who influenced you that way?
Sean, this is the thing is, it's in my genes. My father was an overachiever. He's a pilot. He's the one that taught me how to fly. He was checked out in almost every different aircraft in the world that he could, that possibly you could be checked out in. To fly, you can't just get a pilot's license and fly any plane. You have to be checked out and know every plane that you get in.
Right.
And it was just in my aunt. I'll give you a quick story about my aunt. She started the first AIDS clinic in the state of Florida. She was just a nurse practitioner. She was a missionary. Uh-huh. And my grandparents got sick, and she came home to take care of them. And she got her a job there at the clinic in Titusville, Florida, and said, we got a bunch of AIDS people, and we don't have any way to help them. And that clinic says, we're not going to help them. And her being a missionary said, well, I know what I'm going to do. So just luckily I was making a little money at the time, gave her, helped her get it started, of course, and then she worked with all the, the grants and stuff like that to get it started. It was called Comprehensive Healthcare in Melbourne, Florida, on US 1. She started with just a small little office, and she just died just about 3 years ago. Before she died, Sean, that little office had become a whole city block.
Wow.
So I think everybody in my family are overachievers. Huh. And even today, even her being passed away, her clinic, of all the clinics in the United States, still has the highest mortality rate of all clinics. So that just runs in my family, Sean.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And that's what usually there is something that, like you said, it's in your DNA. But I guess also you learn from example.
This what also happens too, Sean.
Yeah.
For me, and I say this, and I got 5 or 6, 7 people I could point fingers to. Yeah. I've always was somehow in the right place, at the right time. When I was a skinny little geek, just learning how to work out, I met this guy named Randy Pettigo. This guy was possibly the meanest person I ever met in my life. He boxed professionally. He knocked out Michael Greer, and Michael Greer is from Memphis. He had won a silver medal that year in the Olympics. He played linebacker at Kentucky. That's SEC. That's about as good as it gets. So this is my introduction to weightlifting. The meanest, biggest, strongest guy in the gym. And if he didn't like you, he beat you up. And I'm not joking. I mean, he really would. Yeah. And at one time, he was banned from every gym. We only could work out the YMCA at one time. But so again, now weightlifting. So he teaches me this. So now he's the one that helps me get into football. And then when I get into the wrestling side of things, he's also there for me. He says, because I'm also I boxed pretty much my whole life, took karate, and when you do that, fighting is sort of natural. Yeah. And so doing that and being young, I stayed in trouble a lot. So I got married, had a kid, and Randy pulled me to the side. He said, Sid, you run around a really rough group of people. You've got a wife, kid, and then you got a chance to get into this wrestling. And this was Continental, making $40 a night. He said, you've got to learn to be selfish with yourself. And doing that, you'll be successful. And I listened to that every step of my fucking life from that day on.
Wow. So it stayed with you.
It stayed with me. And and I'm still selfish today. I get up at 3:30 in the morning, Sean. This is no joke. Everybody knows that. I'm in the gym at 4:45. I'm home and I'm at work at 7:45 on my tractor. Nobody's ahead of me, Sean, ever. And I can say that honestly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, that you're still doing that after.
Well, Sean, that's my gene pool. If my aunt was alive, she'd still be doing it too. It's just that's who we are.
So you have this fateful meeting, which, like you said, you just seem to be in the right place at the right time, and you run into all these guys at a gym.
And then after that, I'll give you a real quick rundown. Then I go to Continental. Robert Fuller, for whatever reason, likes me. Real nice to me. He's the one that he told me this. Sid, you ever read a kayfabe sheet? And I said, no, Robert. He said, well, it's a sheet of someone's writing, and the guy doesn't know anything about the business, and he's saying really bad things about you right now that aren't true. He said, trust me, one day you're going to be something in this business, and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So he says, I don't want you to ever read one, and which I never have. Really? So even though a lot of people will say Robert Fuller wasn't a smart guy, he was pretty smart because he booked some big, pretty major territories, and he drew some money. So my first introduction to wrestling. Now, really, my first introduction, and I don't want to get any further without saying this, was as Bruno Lauer. We got put together by coincidence. Bob Polk was Ron Fuller's partner in a hockey company. They owned a couple of hockey teams, I think. He said, met me at the gym. He says, and I for just a short time, independent stuff. I did a little short gig in Lord Humongous for the Memphis territory. And he's down to Continental. And Sean, I'll be honest with you, I did not know that there was other wrestling organizations. And I said, I don't know about moving to Birmingham. And so he says, well, we're going to get you tagged up. We're going to get a guy manager named Downtown Bruno. I had met Bruno just in a brief, about a 6-week deal. Somebody was supposed to have done a run in Memphis and pulled out of it. I don't know who it was, but they put me in that spot, and I got that spot. But that was enough to get me started. Yeah. So Bob Polk, I meet Bob Polk in a gym called Fritz Riviera. So he says, we're going to bring you in. So I said, you know what? I don't have any other offers. So yeah, I'll take this. So I meet Bruno at a truck stop here in West Memphis, and we follow each other down to Birmingham. Really, the very next day we get there, we find a basement apartment, and there's my career. Now, again, I was in the right place at the right time. Robert Fuller liked me. The owner, it was a coincidence that the Fullers had sold the southern part of the territory to a guy named David Woods. He had been in World War II, and he'd been completely burned out. He had one eye. He run for governor of Alabama for a lot of times, but didn't get it. But he was a multi-billionaire. He owned like 20 or maybe, 20, 40 radio and television stations across the United States. So David Woods also is, I hate to say this, is a mark for me. And so he really likes me. So, now I get a little bit of a guarantee. Not much. I think it was $400 or $500 a week. So that was enough that I could really survive on.
At this point, I mean, how are you pretty good sized? Are you still, because I'm sure a lot of what they're
I'm growing at this point. I probably, when I look back at those pictures, my first, I looked a little smooth, but by the end of that first year, I was in good shape.
But they're probably looking at you, seeing the size of you and the potential that you could. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. And so how did the connection with Tojo Yamamoto?
Well, Tojo, what it was is real weird. There was this promoter worked for a singer here in Memphis called Eddie Bond. He was a country singer. And he saw me at a Fridays. He said, you ever thought about professional wrestling? And I said, no, not really. I was still trying the football deal. He said, well, I know a guy named Guy Coffey who was a big deal at the time here. He goes, I want you to meet me at the Coliseum. So we go to the Coliseum, and they introduce me to the guy. We're talking to him, and he's not really saying much. And so long story short, Randy Savage and them see me there that night. They see me in the gym the next day, and they go, hey, man, get away from this guy, whoever, I can't remember the guy's name. He says, and we'll get you in. So they got me introduced to Tojo, who was training, I'm guessing, the talent that was coming through Memphis at the time at the place at Nat. All right, that's where they held wrestling, sometimes twice a week, Thursdays and Saturdays. But mostly it was Saturday nights. That was their big show that night on Saturday.
So Randy says that he would get you connected as far as training went? Is that how?
He got me introduced to Tojo.
Okay.
And I didn't know Randy any more than I knew the next guy in the gym. But really, I'd say him and Hillbilly Jim, which was Harley Davidson, who gave me some really great advice. But they're the ones that sort of got me hooked up with this guy and with Tojo, and then the next thing you know, I'm in wrestling school. Sunday mornings, driving from Memphis, leaving at 3:00 in the morning to get there at 7 to start training. And
so
that's how it went.
Yeah, how brutal was that training? Because we hear about Hiro Matsuda and some of the guys.
No.
How tough was this?
I'm gonna tell you something. And this is the deal with Sean. You know this. What wrestling schools are really made for is to first just take your money. Of all the people that I was in wrestling school that year, I was the only one that ever made it. That's your percentage. You know what I mean? Yeah. And what it is, it's so physically demanding. I'll never forget my first day. Time we got done with the neck exercises and the free squats, I literally could not walk to do the rest of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then at the end, Tojo had this ritual where, I got introduced to the kendo stick my very first day, and we would get on our knees, our hands behind our back, and he would hit us until we couldn't take it anymore. And me wanting to try to be the tough guy, I tried to take the most hits.
Wow.
And that's and what really, Sean, what that really is trying to get rid of the people who aren't going to make it.
Weed them out.
Exactly. That's what it is. And if you've heard that, the stories about, Stu Hart and Matsuda and blah, 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 blah. And the power plant and all this, it's first to make money, and the ones that can't make it, get their money and get them out of there.
Yeah. Or they get stretched and they never come back.
Exactly.
Yeah. But how
many times I saw that?
Yeah. How many weeks does that go on before you get to a point where you feel at least you're somewhat confident to step into a ring?
Well, too, Sean, this is the thing is back then they didn't smarten you up. And I'll give you a really funny story. I was still in wrestling school. I'm sitting at home. I was living with my in-laws. I'll never forget this. And I get a phone call. It's Tojo. And he goes, "Hey, Sid, you want to be at a show in Coliseum tonight? Be in the Fabulous One's corner." I said, "What?" "Yeah, of course." So I drop what I'm doing. I run over to the Coliseum. So I meet them there at the back door. And so they come over to me. I think it's Jerry Jarrett. And Tojo says, "Okay, now what we need you to do tonight is this. You're going to be in the corner with the Fabulous Ones. And they're going to go be wrestling the sheep herders. And you got to realize, if you never met the sheep herders, they're scary looking people. Jonathan Boyd might be, at that time, one of the scariest human beings I've ever seen in my life, right?"
Uh-huh.
So they're telling me, he said, "This is the deal. If Jonathan Boyd gets out of his seat, your job is to put him back in his seat." I'm going, hold on. Now, where's the part about this is a work and this is fake and we're going to be friends afterwards? And they go, "You get this?" I went, "Yeah, yes, sir, I get this." So I sit out, and outside the dressing room, which they didn't allow me in the dressing room. I sit out there for 3 hours standing there, and they'd come to me occasionally and go, "You know your part?" "Yeah." If he gets out of his seat, put him in his seat. He goes, "Yeah, that's it." And I'm going, "Oh, and they never tell me and.
Right.
So I'm scared, to tell you the truth, So I go out there and I'm in the corner sitting down, and the match starts and Jonathan Boyd stands up. I go, "Okay, well, if I want to be in this business, this is what I got to do." So as soon as I stand up, he sits back down. I go, "Hold on a minute. Maybe he's scared of me. I'm bigger than he is." And so another spot comes up. He stands up. The crowd, is reacting, and I stand up, and he sits back down. Long story short, they told him, when you do that, you sit back down, there's not going to be, no contact. This kid is smart.
Yeah.
So that's how it went.
All the psychology.
Right. Now, what was weird about it was the Fabulous Ones brought, I think it was Bill Dundee was part of the sheep herders at that moment. Brought him over and said, "Give him a punch," and I did. A punch to the head. So and that's something Memphis territory was emphasis about was lay it in, and things like that. So that's what happened. That was my first experience at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Wow. And you that's quite a start. And you were already working ring psychology and didn't even know it.
Didn't even know it.
So when did things really start happening? When you start working and having to try and figure this business out? And when did they finally smarten you up?
Well, what happened was, again, somebody or Austin Idol was in a match against Jerry. This is my very first match, okay?
Yeah.
Against Jerry Lawler and Nick Bockwinkel. And they had a mystery opponent. Now, I was told that it was supposed to have been Terry Funk and something happened and he didn't show up. And I don't know if that's true or not, okay?
To this day.
To this day. I don't know. But somebody didn't show up.
Okay.
So Lawler sees me at a softball game and says, "Hey, would you like to wrestle?" And I went, "Yeah." So he said, "Come by my house." So I go by his house, and he gives me the Lord Humongous costume that he had made for a guy named Mike Stark, who did it only on off. He was a football coach, and he only did it during the summers, you know.
Yeah.
So he says, "Here's the Lord Humongous. We're gonna make you Lord Humongous." So I did. I did Memphis a couple times. I did the Loop, like it was about a 3-4 week deal. But my very first match was me and Austin Idol against Nick Bockwinkel and Jerry Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there it is, my first match on main event. So I think that was a pretty cool way to start.
Yeah, and you're at a point coming in. It couldn't have been the timing as far as entering the business. If you've got talent, could not have been better.
Right.
We're talking, 87.
Right.
when everything's happening with the WWF, that's just.
Well, this is really before WWF really hit their big stride.
Right. But everybody else is doing well,
like you said, it was perfect.
Yeah. So did it help you move along in that point? I mean, you certainly had to pull it off in the ring, but it had to be a great time to have come in.
Well, this is the thing is, Sean, I was really the first year I was almost in limbo. Well, that character, Lord Humongous, there wasn't really a lot of psychology to that.
Yeah.
So I really spent the first year just having short matches and them protecting me where I couldn't do, make bad decisions. But I was, being schooled by, I was in the ring with maybe one of the best you could have ever started with, and that was Nightmare Danny Davis, who, in my opinion, is just a miniature Ricky Steamboat. I think he's that good. Especially in his day, he was just really, really good. So there it is. Again, I'm lucky. I'm in a territory who I'm getting a push and don't even realize it. And then I get to work with a really great worker that makes me really look good. And again, that's what it just followed me my whole life.
So is that a pretty good organization, the CCW?
It was 10 times better than the Memphis territory.
Really? And there were a lot of... Yeah, but there was also a lot of talent there that would become pretty big superstars.
Well, this is the thing about it was once I got there, Dutch Mantel's there. One of the Sheep Herders is there. Tom Pritchard's there. Dirty White Boy's there. I seen these guys in Memphis. And
Mark Calloway.
Then I realized how the business worked at that point. Uh-huh. You get a run here, then you go to Texas. You get a run there, you go to Portland. You get a run there, you go to Florida. And then I'm realizing how it works,
And then you've got, it seems like a great place to learn. And they're protecting you. They're giving you a chance to take it all in.
Right.
Then you get a chance to go to Japan, too. This is around that same time, right?
Exactly. What happened I don't even, how they came to me. The Japanese company, really, Eddie Gilbert came in and started booking Continental. And with him being such a great mind, and I guess he's the one that brought the Japanese people in because he was using a couple of the Japanese guys. And so when they come in, these agents saw me and said, "Hey, man, we want to bring you to Japan, but we don't like Lord Humongous." So the character, I think they had used it before or something like that. And then they said, "We're going to call you something else." Well, during that period, Eddie, goes to WCW and starts booking. All right. So then Bob Armstrong comes in and starts taking the book and actually gives me my notice. Now, before that, Robert Fuller had left Continental and he's booking Memphis. So Robert already called me and asked me if I wanted to come home. And I said, "Well, not right now. I'm still doing pretty good here, but if I need to, I will." And then sure enough, I guess Bob, what's his name? Bob Armstrong must have heard of that. And
Yeah.
so he brought me in. He goes, of course he wants to get his own kids over. And he says, hey, Sid, and I didn't realize I'm getting a notice. He said, I heard you talk to Robert, and I think Robert could get you a job if you want to go back home. And I said, sure, I could do that. But now, I talked to David. David Woods came to me. The owner said, hey, Sid, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. And I said, no, man, I want to go back home for a while. So then I came to Memphis, and that's when I started the Sid Vicious character, because the Japan people did not want Lord Humongous. So there was a good opportunity to change characters. And they brought me in. They called me the Vicious Warrior. Now, you know how I got brought in there, Sean, is that because of the death of Bruiser Brody.
Uh-huh.
So they brought me in 6 weeks early and showed me nothing but tapes of Bruiser Brody and put me in the dojo beating those Japanese kids up. And they said, now, this is what we want you to do. And then, of course, I don't know if you know this now, but, you could go through the fans and beat the fans up in Japan at that time. So I was doing just like they told me to do. I mean, I was going through the audience, beating the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, you must have seemed like Godzilla to these people.
Exactly. It was just like Godzilla. I mean, I was hurting myself kicking these people, And now here it is. I'm getting a push and don't realize it either. This is the thing is, Sean, I've never been jealous of anyone, and I don't understand why anyone would ever be jealous of me. So I'm getting a push over there, I guess. I am. What it is, this is how they worked it. Inoki, the whole deal was it was a tour, 6-week tour, whatever. He started first match, and I was main event every night. And he was working himself to work with me the last week in the main event. He figured he needed to work himself back up. So every night I'd work with somebody, I would take that guy and toss him over onto Inoki after I beat him. So again, I don't realize I'm even getting a push. I'm just doing what I'm told. So the last night I ended up beating knocked Ron Starr out in the bus. Now, I didn't. What it was, the last night they put me in a match with him, me in a tag match, and I'm doing what I've seen I was over 6 weeks early. So for 12 weeks, I'm just doing what I've been seeing. So, and over there, nothing makes any sense. So he's in there working. I just come in the ring and start hitting people. I was told to do that. So when we got in the bus, he said, "Hey man, when I'm in there, don't come in there and do that." I just said, "Hey Ron, listen, I'll tell you, we'll make it easy. If we're on a tour together, we won't be in a fucking match together." So he got up with a beer bottle, tried to hit me. Before he got up, I knocked him out between the seats. And that was the last night of that tour. Of course, they didn't care. I think they fired him after that. But so again, I don't why he's mad at me. It's because again, I'm taking I'm not taking anybody's spot. I'm just getting a spot. I was also there when they beat up Bob Orton and fired him too, because he was upset that I was getting a push. So they. But
you're just trying to learn the business at this point, right?
That's all I'm trying to do. I don't give a fuck about none of these guys. I don't even know wrestling. I wasn't a wrestling fan. So they came to Bob Orton, true story, and said, "We want you to put Matt Suit over tonight, Master Saito."
Right.
He's one of their top guys, right? You know what I'm talking about, Master Saito?
Yeah, right. He was a legend.
So they want him to put him over and say, "We want you to put him over." I think with the clothesline, and him and Ricky Chosha clothesline. So he says, "No, you just tell him, just roll me up." And then the little agent came over and said, "No, good match." So Bob goes out there and lays on his ass. When they get back to the back, they pulled him into the room and beat the shit out of him, and then they sent him home the next day. So I see all this my first tour. So I don't want to get these guys mad at me. Yeah. I just want to do what I'm being told and keep my job.
Yeah.
Because you heard those stories how they get you over and beat you up. You don't come home sometime,
Well,
but they did beat him up, but they paid him as well. They didn't send him home without his money, but they didn't bring him back.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the way business was done. That's the
way it is. That way it was in Japan, Sean.
Wow, what an education! You must have been. By the time you came back, you were probably pretty smartened up at that point.
Sean, this is the deal, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I don't even remember my first WrestleMania. I didn't realize it was WrestleMania, and I'm not kidding you. I never looked at a booking sheet. I didn't care who I was working with. I didn't care. It was a business to me. I didn't care if I won or lost. I just wanted to get paid.
So it was a house show, basically. Like I'm just showing up, doing my.
Yes, honestly, I got after my first WrestleMania, someone said, you were at main event WrestleMania. I said, no, was I? And they said, yeah. And I remember the Hoosier Dome, but I didn't really realize that was WrestleMania. I do remember doing the interviews for it, and because I had that Southern accent, I guess I was saying Wrestling Mania or saying it the wrong way. And there was a big sign there that said, tell Sid, just say Mania. And what it was at that point, Sean, Vince was really upset with me because I had already given my notice to quit.
Yeah.
And the reason is because on that situation was in that company, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I left a big guaranteed contract to come into this place, and what the deal was, I was going to do TVs and pay-per-views for 1 year, and after WrestleMania, I was going to be the world champ, and I was going to start my first house show. Well, he had the Fire of the Warrior at SummerSlam, and all that shit changed. Yeah. So from the very beginning, things just didn't go right. So we were in Albany, New York, at Royal Rumble, where I think Hogan pulled me out from the outside or something, and they started booing him. All right, when we get back to the dressing room, Hogan is screaming and acting like a woman, and I go, hold on a minute. And he's screaming at Vince, you set this up. You made this happen. I didn't know Vince was that bad of a person at the time, that did things like that. I thought that was just all hearsay because I didn't care. I really didn't care what they did. So I went to Vince's office. I said, Vince, listen, man. I stuck my hand out. I said, I'm gonna thank you for the opportunity, but I'm gone. I cannot work in a place that grown men act like women. And he said, no, I'm not shaking your hand. I said, well, it's not going to do you any good. I'm leaving. He said, well, you just stay till WrestleMania. And I said, okay, I'll stay till WrestleMania. And that's what I did. And I think I finished up a couple of days after WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I want to get into that whole period with the WWF but you mentioned how it was pretty much always a business to you. You were certainly everybody's in it to make money, but you understand that there are people that generations that come through the business. It's every part of their life. And do you understand that that was probably why you had a lot of heat along the way? Because
what? I don't think we never really discussed that. No one asked me if I had a love for the business. That never was discussed. I never said, I didn't sit there and go, hey, I was a big wrestling fan or this or that. No, those conversations never happened my whole life. Now everybody, once I got to WCW and I got to WWF at that first run, everybody realized that this guy really doesn't care. He doesn't care who he works with or he's just there to make money.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just back up a little bit because I want to get to the WWF and that whole experience. But you traveled a pretty interesting path along the way before you got there, and I wanted to ask you about that, that whole WCW experience because that's what really launched you, though. As far as
and I would have never be where I'm at. I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it wasn't for a guy named Eddie Gilbert. Yeah. Eddie Gilbert met me in Continental. He treated me like his brother there. He didn't have to. He didn't owe me anything. And then I was working for Memphis, working my Japan thing. And what had happened was I didn't even have a telephone. So Eddie Gilbert, is coming through Memphis with WCW. He sees a guy named Ken Wayne who's now in jail for pedophile on the internet. So he tells Ken Wayne. Ken Wayne goes there to look for a job. He goes, no, I can't hire you. But I'm looking for Sid. So I had a little bit of a guarantee in Memphis too. Right. So when I get to Saturday morning at TV to get my check isn't right. So I said, hey man, what's wrong here? They said, well, we just can't afford to pay you that anymore. Well, they thought maybe I knew, but I didn't know, and the Japanese company didn't want me to quit my job there because they wanted a place to come and take pictures of me. And I went, fuck. I said, no, this was a mistake, but I did it. I said, you know what? If I don't get paid, fuck you. and I left. So I didn't have a job. And so about a week later, I go by my father-in-law's car lot. He said, man, some guy's been, I don't know how he got my father-in-law's phone number. He said, man, some guy named Eddie Gilbert's been calling you. I said, really? And I called him. And I said, hey, Eddie, it's Sid. He goes, man, I've been trying to get in touch with you. He said, how would you like a tryout with WCW? I went, God, yeah. Are you kidding me? And brought me in and gave me a job.
And that was big money at the time. It had to be a lot more than you made prior to that. I don't know what Japan.
Man, I was making $50 a night. And then I went from that to making $1,000 a night.
Yeah, wow. That was a big change. So yeah. So he brings you in and gives you a job. But was there?
Well, this is also again. He didn't just give me a job. He created me, Sean. He took his time. Eddie was one of the smartest guys I ever met in this business. He put me with Danny Spivey for a reason. He said, we're going to put you with Danny Spivey. He said, tag teams don't draw money. He said, but you're going to draw money one day, and we're going to get you groomed for this. So we're going to bring you in. We're going to call you the Skyscrapers, and we're going to put you with Danny, and they're going to teach you how to work. Because with the Lord Humongous character, I still hadn't really learned any psychology.
Yeah, you're just beating people up.
Right, I was just beating people up. So again, now I'm working with Danny Spivey. And then, I'm being tutored directly through Eddie Gilbert. And Eddie Gilbert has got a fine comb on me saying, do this, do that. And he's holding my hand from every minute of the day. Even if he's not around me, he was holding my hand. And I really learned everything I know through Eddie Gilbert.
That worked well, and that worked well until you got hurt, and then.
Well, I had a lung surgery, and then when I come back from lung surgery, I think they had let Eddie go, and I can't remember who was in charge then.
You feel at this point, Sid, did you feel like you had learned a great deal during that year? And
this is the thing is, I know after the first 6 months with Eddie and WCW. I knew, Sean, that I was going to be where I was today. And I don't know what you know about me, but I don't know as many people in this business that stayed on top as long as I did.
Well, you just look at your credentials.
Well, right. After WCW, after that skyscraper thing, I was pretty much main event the rest of my life with Vince and WCW when I came back and forth both times. And then, too, we all know the story. Me quitting Vince put me in a bind there. When I went back the next time, I was on the whipping post. But this is what, again, I credit myself to this. I said, you know what? I'll be on this whipping post for a little bit, but I'm good enough that they're going to have to use me one day. And after a year of beating me down, I'd actually hurt my neck and I had to have surgery. So I took a year off. They called me back, said, hey, we need you to come back. And then, again, they had to fire the Warrior again. So I came in. I said, why me, man? I said, I've been off TV for a whole year. And I had taken a job as an ag rep out of Fresno, California, a company called Custom Chemicides, which I was a ag rep for the whole state of Mississippi and Alabama. So, I was making good money with them. But the deal was, Vince, even though there wasn't guaranteed money at the time, he was still sending me. Because this is, Sean, at one time in WWF, people didn't get paid for a month at a time.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, well, I also know that much of your income was based on a house show gate. That was pretty much how you. Well,
this is what I'm saying, Sean. You're not understanding. In WWF, you relied everything on house show gate.
Yeah,
but
right.
Even then, Sean, when you were gone, WWF could not pay the boys. How the boys got paid were they would go on the road and take a draw, and then they take that money home and put it in their bank accounts where they could get back on the road the next tour.
I never knew it got.
You might not get a check for 3, 4, or 5 weeks at WWF at a time. So when that happened, I told JJ Dillon, I said, "This is the deal," and they knew that I was serious. I said, "If I don't get at least $1,000 a week, I'm not coming back on the road." So they did that. So then when I took that time off of my neck thing, payroll forgot. Someone didn't tell payroll to stop paying me. So for a year, they're sending me $1,000 a week. Now I've got a job, making about the same. So I was living a really good lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, me and my wife go to this, it's called Balloon Fest in Greenville, Mississippi, where it's all farmers and stuff like that. And that's, again, here it is. It's great for me because I was a farmer one time, so I'm going back to my childhood stuff. Mm. So all of a sudden I get home that Saturday, and the housekeeper says, man, some guy named Vince McMahon has called at least 50 times today. I went, oh, my God. I'm thinking he's figured out.
He wants his money back.
He wants his money back. I really thought that, right?
Yeah.
So I said, whatever it is, don't answer the phone. So this is before caller ID, right? So I'm talking to somebody and the phone beeps, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I was fucking thinking. So I hit it, and it's Vince. He goes, Sid, Vince. I went, oh, shit. Yeah, Vince, how's it going, buddy? He goes, well, listen, look, I've got a problem. I had to fire the Warrior again, and I need someone to take his place. And I think the first show was, Detroit or something. Yeah. And no, it was Baltimore. He said, I need somebody to take the place. I said, Vince, I haven't been on TV for a year. Can't you think of someone else? He goes, no, Sid, I need star power there. I'm thinking, well, I was on the whipping post before that. Yeah. Surely you got somebody who has more star power than me. He goes, no, I need you. And literally what I had to do is grab my stuff. They picked me up at the airport, and I got dressed on the way to the arena. Okay? I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I won't hear any more from him. So the next week, the same thing. I need you again. So I think the next time is Detroit. And I remember because Butterbean was there. This is when he wasn't so fat. So, I'm thinking, okay, they know they're paying me. They're wanting their money back. So now my company that I'm working for say, you're not going back to wrestling full time. I said, no way. I'm not going back to wrestling. So now they got huh?
Just filling in.
Yeah, just filling in. So my boss in Fresno comes and rides with me to be sure that I'm not. I said, no, sir, Mr. Kimmer, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just doing this to help them out for a couple shows. So now Vince talks me into doing their pay-per-view. It's in Vancouver. And it's me and Davey Boy and Ahmed Johnson against somebody. Anyway, this is how it went. They pull me into Vince's office. Vince says, hey, man, I need you to come back full time. And I said, Vince, I'm not coming back full time. He said, how come? I said, well, and I told him the truth. I said, he didn't know he was paying me $1,000. I said, I thank you for the $1,000. Of course, he didn't even know it. Yeah. I said, but I've got a really great job. My family's really happy. I said, you do not give guaranteed money. You don't like me. He doesn't. And I said, I'm going to say the wrong thing to you, which I always do, and you're going to put me in a dress, and I'm not going to be able to make any money. I said, but now, if you give guaranteed money, I can wear a dress every night and be happy with it. Mm-hmm. He said, are you holding me up? I said, no, I'm not holding you up. I'm just telling you what I need to come back. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, let's do this. We'll give you a guarantee, but we'll pay you night to night. And at the end of that year, whatever we don't pay you, we'll make up. I said, no, that's not a guarantee. I said, I'm not interested. And I started to walk out. He goes, oh, hold on. We'll do it. So I was the first one ever to get guaranteed money. And I was the most hated. So, Sean, if that doesn't say that, definitely define me as maybe one of the greatest talents in this business, because when Vince hates you, he hates you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He hates me, without a doubt, because I left him after WrestleMania. So for him to come back to me and give me guaranteed money has to say that I'm one of the most powerful people in this business at that moment.
Well, and also, you said you were one of the first that ever got guaranteed money. I mean, Vince knew maybe at that point that the gate was going to break at some point, but he held out for that. Nobody was getting guaranteed money, and for you to have been able to do that, because, like you said, you were willing to walk away and go on with your life.
Well, I didn't want to come back, Sean. I had a really good job. Me and my family were really happy. My wife, makes great money. So, again, it wasn't great money. He gave me $100,000 signing bonus, and I got $400,000 a year. So it wasn't like I was making, the best money in the world, but it was good money.
Okay,
and I had that for the next 4 years or something like that. All right, so that's how that went, and then I went back to work.
So I want to talk about the how that first trip to the WWF at the time happened, because you were still with WCW. Were there back channels that reached out to you? How did that? I'm always fascinated by how that.
This is how this exactly happened. And if I'm lying, I never lie, Sean, because I think it's stupid to lie, and I have no reason to lie. This is what happened. I'm in WCW. Dusty Rhodes has been told he's going to be the new booker. He's leaving WWF and coming back to WCW. Now he sends in Magnum TA to take over for him till he can get there, right? So Magnum comes to me and says, "You're going to be Dusty's man." Okay? So, I mean, they're pushing me really big at this point in WCW.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dusty comes in for our first face-to-face meeting. He says, "Listen, I want you to go to Jim Herd, and I want them to sign you to a new contract, and I want you here." He says, "You're going to be everything," and Dusty's way of saying things, which was really cool. And this was maybe one of the greatest moments of my life to hear that someone cared that much about me. He said, "We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're going to be everything, Sid." And he said, "Now you just go to them and you sign a contract that I know you're going to be here." Now, at the time, I'm only making $250,000 a year, and but that's good money because nobody else is making that money there. Just a couple people.
Yeah.
All right. So we come to agreement. I think it was they offered me $500,000. And this was a long time ago. So
that's a lot of money then.
So I'm thinking, okay. Now, I go home, and I'm talking to my wife. Now, when they opened up this door, they opened a door that I could call Vince. So I said, "You know what? I want Hogan's spot, and I think I can take that. So I'm going to call Vince McMahon." Sabrina said, "No. I said, "No, I'm going to try this." So I called, Titan's office. And they said, "Who is this?" I said, "My name's Sid Vicious. I want to talk to Vince McMahon." And I'm not bullshitting you. In 3 seconds, he was on the phone. "Sid Vicious? Yeah. Vince McMahon." And within 45 minutes, I left my house. I was on a jet, and I was in his office within that afternoon. All right. He sits down and says, "Well, Sid, we don't give guaranteed money, but here's the magic wand. You tell me what you want." I said, "I want Hogan's spot." He said, "It's yours." And I said, "Okay, well, let me go home and talk to my wife about it, and I'll get back with you." All right, so as I get back home the same day.
When he said it's yours, what was the rest of that conversation?
Well, he said, I said, "Well, what kind of money can we talk about?" He made some examples what merchandising did and what WrestleMania would bring and things like that. So, what he said WrestleMania would bring was going to be the same that I was going to make in a year at WCW. Mm-hmm. He suggested that, right? He didn't say for sure. All right, he said what Hogan had made. So I go home, and he doesn't. Of course, it's nothing guaranteed. The contract says I guarantee you 1 day of work for a year at $250. Mm-hmm. So time I get home now, Sean, WCW's caught wind of this somehow. And so now they've offered me $750,000. So
guaranteed.
My wife, guaranteed. And this is the first time ever. So I said, "You know what? Fuck Vince McMahon. I'm going to sign that tomorrow morning." So I leave. This is probably the biggest mistake in my life. All right, I'm leaving. The phone rings. My wife answered the phone. She says, "Vince." I said, "Tell him I'm gone." She said, "I already told him you're here." So I get her on the phone. He said, "Vince." I said, "Vince." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, look, Vince, are you going on your way to sign that contract?" I said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "I didn't want to call you back and put you in the middle and try to play the middle game because I didn't think that was fair. So I just said, Mr. McMahon, this is more money than I could ever dream of, and I'm going to sign the deal." Exact words to me. He said, "Sid, you'll never get this opportunity again." So on the way from there to the towers, CNN towers, I made my mind up to fucking take that chance, and it was a big mistake. I never made that kind of money there. I made $150,000 for WrestleMania. I made good money. I don't think I made $750. But it was a big mistake. When I look back on it, that was the only real mistake I made in the business.
When Vince said that you were going to take, Hogan's spot's yours. How did he mention how that was going to happen? He just said we will work. Well,
I just told you before you asked me this. He said, "This is what we're going to do with you. You're just going to do TVs and pay-per-views for 1 year, no house shows. And after WrestleMania, you're going to start your first house show." He said, "We've never done this with anyone." So I'm thinking, well, how in the fuck am I going to get paid for 1 year if you don't give me money? He said, "Well, we're going to take care of you." I said, "Oh shit," So that was a big chance I took. But what happened was the Ultimate Warrior started demanding more money, and then they fired him at SummerSlam, and it was set up. Right as soon as he walked through the curtains, they fired him, and then this was their version of Hogan passing the torch. He did the pose down with me, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. that was the big goddamn deal. And if you think that's a big deal, you're as stupid as the rest of them. So anyway, that's how it happened. Yeah. So I was pissed from that moment on, and I didn't want to be there anymore. And but
Yeah, but Sid, do you look? I mean, you say that was a big mistake that you didn't take that big money with WCW, but do you think that if you hadn't taken that chance and stepped on that stage in the WWF, that would that have been something you might have regretted later? Because you can look at it and say it was a big mistake, but look what you accomplished there.
Well, no, it was no. As far as my personal accomplishments, it was the best decision.
Right, you're saying money-wise.
Well, no, not money-wise. Vince was the worst payoff guy in the business. But as far as I got to draw money, I got to see buildings filled up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was, the big part of that. So that on that side of it, and then now, Sean, I did learn the business at this point, being in WWF. The two companies are totally different. WCW was like working for, for Ted Turner. It was like a business. And Vince's, WWF was one step from the carnivals. You know that as well as I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the business. That's the nature of the business. It's been that way since the beginning of,
Well, no, but you didn't work for WCW, right?
No, never.
It was like a real business, Sean, where there were no drugs. There was no fucking weird shit going on. It was, you did your job, you went home, and your family meant, they cared about your family, and it was a total different world. And I told Vince in Albany, New York, I said, "Man, I'm just not ready for this. I'm just a dumb old country boy, and any of this doesn't make sense to me right now." And I had to get out of there, and that's what I did.
Well, I think the WCW was a different experience for different people. The way you explained it was a very good experience for you. But getting back to your time in the WWF, and what was your relationship like with Terry, with Hogan?
Face to face, he was always great to me. I don't know if he said or did things behind my back. I don't know that, but he was always, from the very first day to the last time I saw him, the guy was always really good to me.
Now, but when you refer I think a classic example is that '91 Royal Rumble you talked about, where you go in, you say the finish, and that was never. I obviously you knew what was going to go on at the end there, but when you end up in the ring, and Hulk, you said you actually there was a bigger pop for you when that happened. Did you remember at that time when you were in the arena going, "Wow, that's kind of crazy"?
This is the thing, Sean. At in that particular what do you call era? At that particular months or that year of the business, Sean, this business. Hogan was already on the downhill skid. He wasn't getting cheered. That Three Stooges comeback wasn't working anymore. That was his comeback, right?
Well, I know what you're saying with the coming back with.
No, he copied that from Curly off the Three Stooges. You're not aware of that?
No, I never had it presented to me that way.
Well, he presented that to me like that. I'll never forget. I thought, okay, I've got to have a heel match and get blah, blah, blah. He goes, no, brother, this is going to be easy. He said, you just beat me up a little bit. He said, all of a sudden, I'll start doing the shake, and I'll slap my face down a couple times like Curly does. You go throw a punch, I'll block it. You hit me, I'll hit you. Do that a couple times, blah, 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 blah. And that's all. That's how easy it was. It didn't make for great matches, but it worked for him. So when you're doing that kind of match after that long of a time, people are going to shit on that, right? I mean, they're going to get tired of it. So, and then in the business, Sean, too, it's not that I was any better than Hogan. It's he'd had his run, and they needed someone new. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Vince, that's why he said, you got Hogan's spot.
So so the overall, and you talk about WCW very fondly. Are you really bitter about that experience with the WWF, WWE, or do you take what was good out of it? And
no, I'm not bitter at all. I'm glad I did that, Sean, because I like testing my balls once in a while, and I think that much of myself. I think I'm just that much better than everybody else, that I weathered that storm as well as anybody could have weathered that. But this is what pisses me off, things like this. On Ric Flair's documentary on ESPN, he talks, and Hogan said and agreed with him. This is what makes me mad. He said, now, what it was, they put me and Flair in some house shows against Piper and Hogan. And why did they do that, Sean? You know this. To sell tickets before WrestleMania, because there was only 4 pay-per-views in the year at that moment. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So in between those 4 months, they'd run house shows. They wouldn't put me in a singles with Hogan, but they'd put me in tags just to sell out the arenas, right?
Yeah. Well, and build that storyline.
Right, build the storyline. Yeah. Never, and you know this too, WWF knows what the main event in WrestleMania is a year before, right?
Yes.
For the most part. They did back then.
Yeah, back then. Now it's every 2 weeks. It's
every 2 weeks. All right. Yeah. Back then, they knew that I was going to be main event. So for Flair to get on ESPN and say that the reason he didn't get main event is because the matches, he got watered down working with Hogan. I was the one working with Hogan. He was just a fucking pawn in that game. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I certainly wasn't in any position to understand how the booking went back then. I just knew that,
they did not ever have him. Never had him. You know the word penciled in. He never was penciled in main event. I was the main event because I'd given my notice for WrestleMania. They weren't going to put. Flair couldn't sell that out. But that's how that happened. So again. It's just the lies. What I hate. I hate liars. But again, that's how that worked out. And then I got out of there, went back to WCW, ended up coming back to Vince, and then took that time off because of my neck, and went back to him as Sycho Sid, and then from there I went back to WCW.
Yeah.
When I went back to WCW is when I made money.
Yeah, well, a lot of people made a lot of money during that period of time, and when you look back at those, some of those house shows, and you mentioned this, going to these places, and where there were thousands and thousands of people, did you really get the chance to enjoy that and really?
Yes,
because
that was
here you are, this guy from Arkansas.
That was probably the most fulfilling time of my life in the business. Even though when I worked for WCW, I literally made, I was almost at 1.8 million, and I was only making, for Vince, $400,000 a year. So, making 1/4 the money, the fulfillment was great. Now I went back to WCW. It was sort of a downer at first because they couldn't put 10,000. They couldn't even put 2,000 people in an arena. So that after learning that I could do that with the right machine behind me, and that Vince liked to use that word machine, that was disappointing to get the money but not get the results.
So what do you think that period of time you said you were bouncing back between both those behemoth organizations, really the two elite organizations. What do you think that period of time? How did that change the business and even to this day, from all that was going on at that point? We're talking like the mid 90s into the
till today.
Yeah.
Sean, I don't know. Why are you asking me why they changed? It changed.
No, I'm just saying that you were a part. You were and I can't imagine anybody realized it at the time. I mean, it was just doing business and making money and doing what you guys did in the ring. But when you look back at that period of time, it changed the world of professional wrestling forever. And
sure.
The competition between the two was in the end really, really good for the business.
Oh yes. Now Eric Bischoff, and I told people this. I saw it happen to Memphis and Smoky Mountain. What happened, Sean? And they pretended to have WCW pretended that the WWF was coming in and taking over by using. First, it started with the London Blaze, and it went to Lex Luger, and then it went from Kevin Nash to Scott Hall, or Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. When you do that, Sean, it's real simple. When you pretend and I saw it happen firsthand in Memphis and Smoky Mountain, when they did that in-house feud, both territories shut down after that. Because what happens, Sean, is this simple. When you bring one territory into another existing territory, it turns everybody in that territory a babyface, because as a fan, as a Memphis fan, you want to see the Memphis people win, okay?
Yeah.
So when both territories go back to their existing territories, you're left with nothing but baby faces. And the business in those days dominantly drew money because of the heels.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
When I said this, and that's exactly what happened. When WCW got done with that run, Vince and them were able to withstand that, and that's what killed WCW.
Yeah. And that's pretty much, you say in the end, that's what the way you look at it is that was the downfall.
That was the downfall, Sean. It wasn't maybe, that was the downfall.
That was it.
And when they tried to bring in, every guy that afterwards, it just got harder and harder and harder. And then, Vince is if anything, he is, maybe the smartest guy for the wrestling business. He's also, I think, could be considered the stupidest guy in the wrestling business, because he's done some really stupid things. But he also was lucky at the right time too. And that time when I came back as Sycho Sid the second time, that's when the business kicked back in. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I'm taking credit for it, but before I got there, I knew people were quitting because they weren't getting paid. And when I got back there, they're giving me guaranteed money because they're selling out again. Mm-hmm. And what it was, they took me off that whipping post and they let me be who I was.
So, Sid, through it all, what allowed you to never, ever waver on just living who you were and not compromising no matter what? What was it inside you? I mean, just that confidence?
This is the deal, Sean. I'm writing a book about it. I want to talk about that book in just a second. Okay. My great-grandfather, and this is a true story, goes to my grandfather, real, just quiet people, down to earth, farmers that sharecropped and lived a tough life. Never got, I was a farmer, and my feet never left the ground. I never thought I was Sid Vicious. I never thought I was Sid Justice. I never thought I was Sycho Sid or Lord Humongous. I was Sidney Eudy, okay? Yeah. And I was very proud of my family. So that's what kept me where I was. And then I really believe, Sean, and I think I proved it, that if I worked hard enough, no matter what the circumstances was, I would weather the storm. Now, we know the storm in WCW started with the deal with Arn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is how that went. Right. So what happened there was I just got a new contract. But they found out that I was in WCW this whole time, and they never signed me to one. All right. Odie had gotten fired, and Eric had taken over. And Eric says, "Hey, man, we don't have you on a contract." I said, "I know that." He said, "Well, they wanted to sign me for $300." So I said, "No, I'm not going for that. I want the $500, which I was promised." So he gave that to me. Well, the next week we go overseas for the first time. I think that's the first time WCW goes overseas. The fight happens. We come back from the fight, and now we get brought in the office. I do, and they go, okay, you can keep your job, but you're going to go back to the 350 instead of the 500. And I said, no, I'll get the 500 or I'll fucking quit. Yeah. Knowing I'd left Vince on bad terms, but I still believed in myself enough that Vince needed someone like me and he would, use me. Eventually, now, reluctantly, he did. He called me in. I was working for Memphis, and he had me fly in to the office here in Stanford. He told me exactly what he wanted me to do, and I told him exactly what I had to have to do it, and that's how we come to terms. Yeah. So that's how I came back as Sycho Sid. Of course, we know the reason they called me Sycho Sid, right? Are you laughing, Sean?
Huh?
Did you just laugh, Sean?
No, I said I love this story.
All right. The story is I didn't even know what Sycho Sid was about. And even the music, because again, Sean, I don't fucking care. So when I come back, it's Macon, Georgia, and no shit, they didn't have maybe 100 people in the audience that night, WWF. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, what the fuck is going on here? Now I realize why they were willing to bring me back. They were on their fucking ass, big time. And then again, people didn't get paid for a month at a time. And that's where I said, okay, I got this job. I'll make the best of it. I think I made about a little over $300,000 that year. Not great, but enough to, pay the bills. Yeah. So, and then after I hurt my neck, I was having some serious paralysis on the left side, and that's when I took the year off and took the ag job. Yeah. But this is what happens. All right, so I quit, after I have a car wreck in Ottawa, and I'm paralyzed on the left side of my body. So now I'm on guaranteed money, but Vince lets me go because I can't make the shows because I broke my neck. Right. Well, all right. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm out of a job again. So I just start doing independence, and then Paul Lee calls me, coming to ECW. Now I don't have to say this because it's true, and I don't have a reason to lie. Now they're selling out for the first time. Okay, they're doing big business. Well, WCW catches wind of this. They're dropping down, right? Yeah. So Eric Bischoff flies a private plane. I pick him up at the West Memphis airport. We go to Cracker Barrel, and we sit there and make the deal at Cracker Barrel. All right? Yeah. So he says, well, Sid, he goes, we're going to start you out at 1.6. Or that's exactly what I was making for Vince for 4 years, right? Okay. So I'm figuring he already knew that. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at him, okay, you know this evidently, right? But I didn't say anything. Then he goes, but he said, 1.6 your first year, Sid. I went, oh my fucking God, because I'm trying not to show that how happy I am. So I said, well, let me think about it. So I take him back to the airport, drop him off. He actually flew himself in. He's a pilot as well. So then they called me the next day. We talked about it on the phone. I said, yeah. So what they did, they brought me into Baltimore. It seems like Baltimore is like the life of my story of my life. So I come in total black pants, black shirt, black hood and everything. They bring me to a dressing room. They bring Arn in. They say, Arnie's back. Okay, if y'all need to work out any problems, work them out right now. And Arn took his hand out and said, hey, no problem. I took my hand out and said, no problem. And we were back to work. Mm. And that's exactly how that happened.
Yeah. So do you think when it all comes down to it, the fact that you were always willing to just get up and walk away was pretty much the key to it? There's certainly much more to it because of the way you think, but really that you were always willing to go, you know what, I'm out of here.
I think that has a lot to do with it, Sean, because I didn't need, and I don't need anybody today. I'm very self-sufficient, but they knew that I'm not the type of person that's going to be lied to or bullshitted, and now WCW, you don't have to worry about that there. You just show up and do your job, and because I saw Eric at an autograph signing back in April, and I had to thank him so much. Every time I ever see him, I thank him because he made my life what it is today.
Huh.
I'm very, very well off, and I'm very, very happy, and I couldn't be where I'm at without him.
Yeah. So you mentioned you want to put this down in a book. Is that in the
Right.
works, or where are you at with that?
Okay, let me tell you about the book. This is what happened. So my aunt dies. I told you that, right?
Yeah.
So I want to write a book about her. And actually, Sean, because she was a Christian, I said before I could write a book about her, I have to go to church and figure out what this stuff about church is. So now I'm not saying I'm a Christian, but I do go to church.
Yeah. That had never been a big part of your life before?
Never.
Uh-huh.
Only in childhood with her. When she lived here close to me, I went to church with her. But after that, never went to church again for my whole life. All right, so the kid who helped me, I met him through doing a documentary called The Promotion, where after the movie The Wrestler came out, I wanted to show people that there was a place where you can wrestle without cussing and still have a good time. And me and a kid named Brandon Wallace, he was a youth minister at Nettleton Baptist Church in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So I met him. He was just doing some filming for a local promotion in Jonesboro. And so I said, hey, man, I'm trying to do a documentary, and I need a real film crew. And he had good equipment that he was using from the church. So he helped me do this.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I met him. That's how I met him. And we did the promotion. He edited it for me. And I put it in film festivals, and I've got 4 trophies on my mantle right now winning first place in documentaries. It's just a 15-minute short.
Oh.
And I've never tried to sell it. I only use it for film festivals. So anyway, that's how I met him. So after my aunt died, I said, Brandon had wrote a book called The Straight Face. And meaning what happened was, as he got older, he decided, that he was gay. And he called me one day. It sort of startled me. He said, Sid, I got something to tell you. I think you're going to be mad at me. I'm thinking, oh, God, he got in trouble using the church equipment. Now I'm in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's going on? He goes, well, I'm struggling with my sexuality. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm gay. I said, well, Brandon, I don't care if you're gay. Just don't try to kiss me. And we both laughed.
Right.
He really handles this really well.
Yeah.
So after my aunt dies, I talked to him. I said, man, I'd like to write a book about my aunt and just some of the, not really about wrestling, but just some of, tied in a little bit and then talk about how I became a Christian, or started going to church.
Yeah.
And then so we're writing it, and all of a sudden I told my lawyer, I was telling him about this book, and he said, man, why don't you really write a book to try to make money with? And I went, man, I don't know if there's money in books. I think it's already been overdone at that point,
Mm-hmm.
And we also were writing a song. I like writing music. So we was going to write a song about my aunt too.
Yeah.
So me and Brandon got to knocking around, and I said, man, you want to try to do this to make money? And he goes, yeah, let's try that. Well, Brandon's a good writer for simple things about talking about your aunt, but he's not a great writer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he's the first to admit that. So we shopped around, and we ran across a guy named Peter Zell, who I can't tell you, I can't remember all his credentials, but he's a graphic novel writer.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends me this thing, and I'm thinking, hold on, man, am I really this cool? So we send it to so my lawyer, Scott Kirkpatrick, sends it to Scott Amon, who's the merchandising or something for the WWE. So well, let me get you hooked up with the book department. So they first say, well, you've been out for so long, you're really not relevant. You're not really a big topic anymore. So, but send us the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent it to them, and they call me back. They go, do you really think you're that good? Mm-hmm. And I said, hold on a minute. It was only like 7 pages.
Yeah.
And it never even mentioned my fucking name,
Mm-hmm.
I said, what are you talking about? It talks about a kid playing wiffle ball in the backyard. It doesn't even mention wrestling.
Uh-huh.
He said, well, we just don't know. So they direct us to a publisher called Acclaim and another one. So after hearing what Acclaim them had to offer, we didn't think it was enough to what we wanted to do. So we decided to do it ourselves. All right. Well, Peter starts writing, and I'm reading, and we get to the first chapter, and it said something about gopher holes, and he said it forward in a small version, and I didn't really. I thought it was just a writer writing. So I said, "Hey, Peter, I'm not being a jerk, but in my life with my grandfather, my great grandfather was a cotton farmer and a corn farmer, and there weren't gopher holes, and I said, you know, we can use that story. I said, but where'd you come up with that story? He said, well, that was a real important time in my life one time, and he had this story about a man he met, you know, some gentleman. And I said, you know what? We can use that, and I'll tell you how we can tie it in. And I just said, you know, I didn't want to insult the guy. I never met him only talking over the phone. And so I said, well, let's do this. Let's tie it in like this. And then I said, but one thing we got to do, I said, you're using Brandon's timeline on a book that we were going to do for fun. We weren't going to try to make money out of it. So I need you to write like you did that first chapter. You know, that WWE said it was, they thought, hey, do you think you're that good? I need to see that kind of writing. I said, I don't want to see anything about gopher holes. So he says to me, he says, well, Sid, I'm going to take a couple months off. I said, no, Peter, you're just going to take off. You're done. So now I'm looking for a new writer. So that's why, and I told Casey before I did the show with you, that's really the main reason I did the show, for two reasons. I want to get that point across that I'm looking for a writer. They can contact me at my home. My number is public under Sidney Eudy in Marion, Arkansas, or you can contact me through Sycho Sid Promotions. But I'm looking for a writer that wants to do something really cool about somebody who's totally different than anybody else in this business. Now, I think our interviews already suggested that, right, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a website? You know, you mentioned your promotion.
Sycho Sid Promotions is a website. It's not mine. It's a guy named Eric Widgen, and he's a good friend of mine. We never met, but we've been talking for the last 12 years, and he's a really cool guy, and he's always gets everybody in touch with me. As a matter of fact, he's the one that got you guys in touch with me.
Yeah. All right, so folks, if you know anybody who's any writers out there that you know can help Sid out with this project, which you seem very passionate about, so you can get in touch with him through that website, through that company. Also, you know, I know that softball was a big part of your life. How did that happen? I just wanted to follow up on it because I know.
I'm gonna give you the story on softball, Sean, and this is the exact story. When I had my lung surgery, of course, you know, softball. I was playing softball before I ever got into wrestling, and at one time I think I played for 9 or 10 different teams.
So, like pro, I mean, were you that good?
Well, I played on a team called Worth. Yeah. They were one of the best team. They were the best team in Memphis and one of the top teams in the country. We were sponsored by Worth, and we were called Sox. And we traveled and played. Now, and this is not bragging or anything, but I could hit home runs left and right-handed. And it really shocked people to see that. I remember one time a lady during the game when I hit one left and right-handed, and I did it left-handed, she goes, "Is that fair?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, it's fair. It's just I'm pretty good at this, you know."
As long as it stays in the lines.
Well, but this is what happened. So anyway, I'm an avid softball player.
Yeah.
So after I had my lung surgery, Sean, I lost a lot of weight. They had to take out half of my right lung. Okay. So when I go back to work check in for WCW, actually they sent Terry Funk to look at me and see if I was still alive. And I picked him at the airport and dropped him, made one loop and dropped him off, and he said he's okay, but I wasn't. That was the first time I had driven since the surgery. Yeah. But he didn't, you know. I don't know if they were trying to get rid of me, but they maybe think I was lying. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I go back to my first meeting with them. They go, "No, you still need to gain some weight. So go back home for a while." So I go back home. I'm working out twice a day. I'm running twice a day. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, I'm playing softball. Well, I'm guessing what happened. You know, when we played Lawler, I killed him. You know, I mean, he couldn't literally hit the ball out of the field. I mean, I don't think he ever hit a home run. I mean, when I played him, I killed him. So I guess he got mad about that and somehow put in the dirt sheet somewhere that Sid's not, he's playing softball instead of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get a call from Ole Anderson and says, "What the fuck are you doing?" I said, "I'm working out like you guys told me to." He said, "Were you playing softball?" I said, "Yeah, in the evenings." He said, "Well, the company's real mad at you. So your punishment is when you come back, you're going to do a job for Lex Luger within a minute." I thought, "You dumb motherfuckers, y'all paid me $250,000 to sit home for a year. I don't care to do that. That's not going to hurt me." And Odie says, and to make it easier on you, I'm going to be in the ring with you. I said, "You don't even have to be there, you know? I don't care about doing a job." Sean, I got fined for putting people over. For instance, when I was working with in those house shows at WCW, if I was main event and they'd come with, like I was getting ready to work with whoever the champ was. Actually, I was the champ for like 30 seconds one time.
Yeah.
And they said, so they came to the house shows and said, "Let's go and do a count out or double DQ." I said, so I went to my car that night and everybody said, "Sid, you suck, man. That was a horrible match." I said, "I know it was, you know." So it was Amarillo. The next night in Lubbock, I'm working with Lex. I said, "You know what? I'm going to put you over tonight." And I put him over. And when I went to my car, the people said, "What a fucking match." They want to see a finish in the main event, right, Sean?
Yeah.
All right, so I did that. Well, when Grizzly Smith was the agent, he said, "If you keep doing this, Sid, you're going to get fined." I said, "Well, either pull me out of the main event and put me a match under the main event, and I'll do a count out or a DQ, but I'm not going to do it in the main event." Even then, Sean, I'm business, okay?
Yeah.
Because I want the people to get what they came for. Now, in reality, I'm going against Sting for the championship, and I'm told I'm going to win, which I did for 30 seconds. So I should have been going over in those matches, but I'm not going to suggest that because I don't care. So I said, I'll just do the job, you know? And I never mind. I mean, that's something Harley Davidson, Hillbilly Smith, Jim told me this, French Riviera in the locker room. He said, "Sid, you're a big guy." He says, "You got to realize this business it's work." He said, "When they tell me we want you to lose tonight, I say, how you want me to do it? You want me to trip as I'm walking in the ring?" He said, "If you'll do that, you'll keep a job." Yeah. And I remembered that my whole career. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't care about doing the jobs. I'm going to get paid the same.
Yeah. Well, Sid, you are absolutely one of a kind, and you did it your way every step. And it's been incredible talking to you. Folks, if you are a legit writer out there who would like to get involved in this project, as Sid mentioned, you get in touch with him through his company, one thing that he's associated with, Sycho Sid Promotions. That's right. That's correct,
right.
Sid?
And you can always call me in my house. And there's one other thing I want to talk about real quick.
Sure.
We have a charity, and what we do at my church is called St. Mary's Cathedral. It's the oldest church in Memphis, and it's the poorest church in Memphis. And it's got a long history, and I'll give you a real quick rundown. Years ago, the yellow fever epidemic hit Memphis, and 1/3 of the population died, 1/3 moved away, and actually lost the cityship for a short time. And why it's called St. Mary's, because a nun from New York City named Sister Mary came there, and she actually died in the parking lot treating these people with yellow fever. Well, back in the day, Sean, they didn't realize yellow fever was caused by mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. And actually, mosquitoes were coming from the ditch behind St. Mary's Cathedral. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we have our deacon there. His name Drew Woodward. He just got teeth recently, and he's an old man. I used to call him the Holy Hillbilly because I love to hear that lisp that he would do the readings. And Episcopalian churches are, in my opinion, the greatest churches there are. It's also educational, and you learn a lot there. So we do this thing on Saturday mornings where we feed the homeless. And in the last 10 years, Drew Woodward is just a welding supply salesman, okay? Yeah. He has given away 150,000 cans of Viennas. And we put 2 cans of Vienna sausages, a pack of crackers, a bottle of water, and a moon pie or oatmeal cake, and a bag of raisins. And we've been doing that. And now we also have a orphanage in Haiti that we sponsor. It's called St. Vincent's. Mm-hmm. It's got like 90 kids there, and they're all last name was St. Vincent because they don't have any family. Well, in Haiti, years ago, there was an earthquake there, and most of those kids are missing an arm or a leg. And what I'm fixing to do, Sean, I'm fixing to have my lawyer and Brandon Wallace, who's going to help me do this, we're going to make a proposal, and I'm going to send this to WWE. And I want them to do some type of sponsorship for this orphanage. This is the thing is, Sean, you know this yourself, and I'm going to throw someone under the bus. Uh-huh. Scott Hall, for instance, he's somewhat of a friend of mine. I've helped him out through his life. Now, we know that Vince, the WWE, has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on his drug rehabilitation, and he's still a bad drug user. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with that. But this is a chance for the WWE to get aboard of something that if you can give a kid, in an orphanage that has nothing, this is everlasting, Sean. This isn't going to be where someone gets a drug rehab and goes home and starts drugs again. Mm. These kids are going to remember this for the rest of their life because they have nothing. And so I'm going to send this proposal to WWE, and I want all the fans that are listening to this, and if you're a true fan, a wrestling fan, that you'll care about this same thing the way I care about it. And I want some help on this. And I'm going to have my lawyer send this proposal to WWE, but I want the fans to hear this first because I want them to get it behind it as well. And I think we all should get behind things like this. Can you imagine that, Sean? If somehow you could get a T-shirt or a doll to a kid that has nothing, what that would mean.
Absolutely. And what's the name of the organization, or how can they identify it?
This is the thing is, Sean, I was just trying to get in touch with my deacon before we called, but he didn't answer. And I'm gonna have all this, and it's under Tennessee something, and I don't want nothing to do with this. I don't want Sid's name attached to it. Now, if they would suggest that I go to Haiti and present some stuff to them, I'd be glad to do that because we do missionary work. I think twice a year we go there. The church does to do things. I haven't personally went myself, but my deacon has. But they don't even know I'm asking about this. The church does it. I want this to be a surprise, But I just think that there's just 90 kids there that are full time, and I think during the day an extra 80 or 90 get to come there and eat and go to school. But I think that the WWE would I know that they're very charitable to things like this, and I think that this would be an easy deal for them to do. And so I'm going to send out a challenge right now. I don't know all the details to it, but I know I'm going to get it sent to them within a couple of days. I'm going to have my lawyer send it back to them. So I'm just asking anybody listening to this show, contact the WWE and ask them to do this as well. Anything that we can do to get this help. And if anybody wants to donate to what we do on Saturday mornings when we feed the homeless, it's called Saturday morning pot tops, where we just give them the Viennas. You can contact St. Mary's Cathedral on Poplar Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee, and you can send donations there under the name of Drew Woodward or St. Mary's. But explain why you would send it. And I'm also going to see if they want to help on that too. But that's my mission right now, Sean, is to get these kids something and to feed the homeless. And this is the thing is, I'm out there every Saturday morning doing this. And the thing is, Sean, people aren't homeless, and they don't come and get 2 cans of Viennas because they want to. They're having to, okay? So if it costs us, I think on average we feed anywhere from 80 to 120. So a can of Viennas is 50 cents a piece. So that's $150 that would cost us a week to feed these people. So if anybody's listening to this, just send Viennas to St. Mary's Cathedral in Memphis, Tennessee, or contact me. And I'm going to have some more stuff that we're going to post on Sycho Sid Promotions that they can see through this and they can follow up on it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Sid. And you're busy as ever, man. I'll tell you.
Well, the thing is, John,
you're giving back.
My aunt died, and I started going to church. Not that I'm a great Christian, because I'm not, but I am a giver, and I love to help. And I think that I hear about these things. I thought about doing one of these GoFund things, but I don't want it to be like that. I want somebody to step up big and do this. And WWE has all the everything it takes to get this done. And I'm handing out right now a personal challenge to them, and ask them to help as much as they can. but they're going to get I'm also sending a real professional presentation to them in the next couple of days, if not this week, next week. But that's my goal right now, Sean, is to get the homeless fed and get these kids in Haiti